How's it going, YouTube? It's Elliot here. Welcome back to another Elliot Read video, guys. This one I am going to be doing my June wrap up. As you know, guys, I've read 7 books in the month of June that either included the author being part of the LGBTQ plus community, or there was an LGBTQ plus character in the story. I read 7, so I'm going to go through each one of them, explain a little bit more about it, my ratings and things and what I gave them, my opinions on them, as I do every month for my wrap-ups. Starting from this video, guys, I'm going to start putting a trigger warning website in my descriptions for books, because a lot of these books, even though they're like romancy and fantasy and things, they do have some quite heavy topics, and they do come with they do have triggers in them. So before you read any of these books that I recommend, or anybody recommends on BookTube, then please do look up trigger warnings before you read them, because I would hate for anyone to get triggered by the topics in these books that have been recommended to them. I'm going to have the website, the trigger warning book website, in my descriptions. I'm going to go back into my past videos and do the same into them as well, just so you are aware. But if I do speak on a specific topic of triggering nature in my videos, then I do put the warning before I start talking about it, and that gives you a chance to skip to another book that I'm reviewing, because I always have them time-stamped in the description so you can swap around. So yeah, just wanted to say that before we get started. So yeah, let's get into my June wrap up and see what I read and what I thought about them, guys. Let's do it. Okay, guys, so the first book I read for the month of June was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, and this is an LGBTQ romance fantasy. This is about a group of magical children. They have powers, they're different species. So we have the Antichrist, a gnome, a wyvern, a pixie, a wolf, a green glob. So yeah, we have these 6 children who live in an orphanage, which is run by a government who oversees all these magical youth. This government, their duty is to assign caseworkers to these orphanages to make sure it's run correctly, the managers are doing a good job and treating the kids with respect and all their basic needs are met, and that it's clean, like the orphanages are clean and tidy and running correctly. This orphanage where these children are gets assigned to a caseworker called Linus. So Linus works for this agency, and he is getting sent to this orphanage for a month so he can assess the way that the manager Arthur runs it, because there's been rumours that he's not doing his job correctly. All these kids who are in this orphanage that is run by Arthur have been through a lot before they got to Arthur. They had all been abused, neglected, bullied, threatened with violence, and a lot of them have like behavioural problems, anxiety, and they don't trust humans and things. They don't trust people. They find it very hard to trust people. So Linus is sent there for a month, and he has to report back every week to the government and tell them how things are running and if he believes that Arthur is doing his job as he should be. And the reason they send Linus is because he does everything by the book. He never strays from the book. He always goes by the rules that the government has set, and he never strays from them. He's very thorough in his reports, so that's the reason they're sending Linus. This orphanage that he's getting sent to is on a separate island to the village where it is located, because the people of the village also don't like the children, because they believe they're an abomination and that they shouldn't be anywhere near humans, that they shouldn't exist, and they threaten them with violence. Yes, they threaten these children with violence, which is very, very sad. Linus sets off on his journey to this orphanage, and he is very, very hesitant at first, because obviously he gets the case files of the children and of the manager, and he's reading through these case files, and the first one he comes to is the one of the Antichrist, Lucy. So when he gets to this orphanage and meets these children, he's very, very hesitant about every single one of them, because they're all very different and they're all very powerful in their own ways, and it scares him. But he's there to do a job, so he does stay, and he starts giving his reports each week to the government. The first one's very thorough, as they imagined it would be. But then he starts to spend time with the kids one-on-one, and he gets to know their personalities, and they start to open up to him a little bit more when they start trusting him. He realizes they're not as bad as everyone is making them out to be. Yes, they have their problems, but it's understandable for everything they've been through. He realizes that Arthur is doing an actually really good job with these kids. He's really, really changed their lives. If it wasn't for Arthur, they wouldn't be how they are. Because Arthur helps these kids through a lot of trauma. He helps them through them embracing who they are. And if it wasn't for Arthur, these kids wouldn't have that. As Linus starts to report every week, his reports become more personal, and he starts to sink his feelings into these reports. The government start to get suspicious that he's not being as thorough, and he's letting his feelings get in the way of his work. As the month goes on, he also starts to get close to the manager and starts to get feelings for this manager. And the manager starts to get feelings for him as well. The manager reveals quite a dark and sad story about his own past. It helps Linus get to know him a bit more and get close to him also. And yeah, so once his time is up at the orphanage, he goes back to his mundane job. The government, they pull him into the office, and they obviously tell him, like I said, that he's putting too much feeling into these reports and that he's letting his feelings get in the way of his work. So they say that they don't feel like he has reported thoroughly, that he hasn't done his job properly, and that they're going to make a decision, but they're kind of leaning more towards that the orphanage is going to be closed. So he kicks up a fuss and obviously says, no, the children need Arthur, they need this orphanage. And he basically walks out of his job. He comes to realise that he belongs on the island with Arthur and the kids. So he goes back to the island, and they all welcome him back with open arms. Luckily, the government allow the orphanage to stay open, and he lives there with Arthur and the kids. And it's really sweet that it ended it was a happy ending. I'm glad that it was a happy ending. It was a really cool story, really interesting, really wholesome, and it was nice to get to see the different kids' personalities and their own traits and their backstories of where they came from and things that have happened to them, as well as Arthur himself. His backstory and why he opened the orphanage, like, in the first place. It's very, very interesting. Wholesome story, but very, like, obviously, like I said, very heavy topics of, like, child abuse and things like that. So, very well written. Very well written. Story was enjoyable. It kept me reading. I wanted to read more. I wanted to see what happened. I wanted to see if a relationship blossomed between Arthur and Linus. And yeah, I gave this one 5 stars, guys. So, that was my first read for the month of June. Okay guys, the next book I read was Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is about a politician's son called Alex and a royal family member called Henry, and they are rivals. They haven't liked each other since the moment they met, and the families get invited to a wedding. Obviously they're drinking and everything. They have a confrontation at this wedding, which results in them toppling over together and knocking over the expensive wedding cake. So their confrontation is all over the press, and in order to do damage control so the reputation of both families doesn't get tarnished, they agree that the boys are going to sign a non-disclosure agreement and they're going to fake being friends for the press. So the boys agree to it because Alex's mum is running for presidency again, and he doesn't want to tarnish her campaign. In this agreement, they have to start spending more time together, do more activities together, and they've got to pretend like the buddy-buddy, chummy-chummy. So the more time they start spending together, then they start to get feelings for each other, because they find out that they have actually really liked each other all along, and each one just thought the other one hated the other one. But they didn't actually. They both really liked each other from the beginning. Because of this, they decide to get into a secret relationship behind everyone's back and just pretend that they're being friends. They get away with it for a while, but then unfortunately it gets leaked to the press that they're actually dating, and again, they have to do some damage control. But Alex's mum is like, if you're serious about this guy, then I'll be behind you every step of the way. I'll support you through it, and we don't have to lie that you're not dating each other. If you're serious about this guy, then we'll put it out that you're dating. Alex is like, yeah, I didn't want it to come out this way, but I guess the world knows now, so we might as well just roll with it and put it out there. They end up doing that, telling the world that they are actually dating, and they have been dating for a very long time. And it's very cute. It's a very cute story, guys. It was a really cute story. Both the characters were really cool. Like, all the characters were really cool. I wanted all of the characters were really, really awesome characters, well executed characters, and you felt for them, like getting outed by the press. Like, you realise how hard it is to be in the spotlight and how daunting it can be on your mental health and things, and how you don't get any privacy. You can't even have a relationship without the papers having to know about it and people having to know about it and having to comment on that. And it's just like, it's interesting to see how they hid it for so long as they did. Interesting to see how the leak got out that they were dating and who leaked it. Really enjoyed it. Really, really wholesome story. Really nice. Like I said, it really opens your eyes how hard it is to be in the limelight and be a person of fame. And yeah. But I did give this one 4 stars. It was quite long. It did quite drag on for quite a bit. But I did enjoy it and I highly recommend it. Okay guys, third book I read was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. This is another LGBTQ fantasy, and yeah, this is about a orc who is like battle hungry and does bounties and fights in battles and fights mythical creatures, but she wants to give all that up. She's become sick of it. She goes on one final bounty with her crew and she collects a stone which is meant to bring good fortune and luck to anyone who has it. She does that final quest, gets the stone, and she takes it for herself, and she's like basically to our crew, peace out, that's me done, I'm finished with this life now. I want to go and relax and just open my own business. So she finds a nice little town. So she buys an old building that used to be like a stable sort of thing. She goes looking for someone to be able to help her renovate it into a coffee shop. So she finds this gnome guy working on a ship, and she asks him, hey, will you come and help me build this coffee shop that I'm wanting to do? I'll pay you a good wage, and he agrees. She shows him the plans of what her ideas are for what the coffee shop should look like. So they both get to work on making this coffee shop, and once they're finished and it's all done and looks really good, but no one knows what coffee is in this place where she is, because they're all creatures. They're just creatures who have never heard of things like that, because it's like a human thing, and they haven't heard of that stuff. She puts a stone in the flooring of the coffee shop, and so she puts an advertisement for a worker, and a succubus called Tandri actually responds to that advertisement and asks for a job. And she's like, yeah, sure, you can work for me. So they get acquainted and get to know each other, and she shows Tandri how to run the equipment and how to make the coffee that they are gonna sell. So once Tandri gets the hang of it, they are ready to open the shop. So they open the shop, and on the first day, not one soul shows up. Viv gets really disheartened because no one showed up and just spent so much time and effort trying to open this coffee shop. So she becomes really upset. Tandri suggests that she start selling food as well as coffee, because nobody knows what this coffee is. She says that they should give free samples of the coffee and also start serving food. They look for a chef to bake these things, and they hire a little mouse dude, and he is a really, really good baker. He is fantastic. When these free samples and all the food is being advertised, they start to get more and more customers. The little mouse chef starts doing like different kinds of pastries and things to sell, and it becomes really, really popular. People are trying the coffee and they're really enjoying it. They're trying like lattes and things, really enjoying it, and the business starts to pick up. And then she gets visits from her old like crew that she used to hang out with, and they come because she just left without any word of warning, and a majority of them forgive her because they understand that you do get sick of that life after a while, and eventually you're going to hang up your axe and quit it. So they all understand, they all forgive her, they're all friendly with her again, apart from one person. He believes that the bounty was distributed unfairly, and he wanted the stone that Viv got. He does everything he can to try and steal the stone back from Viv, but every single time she catches him, so he has to come up with different plans to try and get the stone. And eventually, he comes up with the horrible idea to burn the coffee shop to the ground so he can get this stone back. He sets fire to it, he gets the stone, he runs off. His business has burned to the ground because of this. She's really distraught and upset about it, but the town have bound together and help her rebuild. When they rebuild it again, it does really well. Again, it does well. It does even better than it did before. And Viv realizes that the stone doesn't bring fortune in the way of money and success. It brings it in the way of good people, kind people who are going to be around forever and be really good friends. She realizes she didn't need the stone. She didn't need the stone all along. She got everything that she wanted. She got friends who were like family to her. She got her old team back, and they all would be regulars again into the coffee shop, and it was a really nice ending. And it was really sweet how everyone just banded together to help her rebuild her business even bigger. Throughout all of the time that Tandri and Viv run the coffee shop, they became very close to each other and fell for each other. And Viv asked Tandri to move in with her when the coffee shop was rebuilt, which is really sweet. And it was just such a cozy, wholesome fantasy. I really enjoyed it. The story was so nice, so good. The characters were I love the characters. The little mouse chef was my favourite because he doesn't talk, he just squeaks, and he just he doesn't talk. But then at the end, he started to talk more when he got more comfortable with everyone. But he'd only say like a few words, and it was just like really cute to see him come out of his shell a bit more. I just really enjoyed this book. Such a cozy read, and I'm happy I picked it up and read it. So yeah, very wholesome, very good. Amazing story, amazing characters, very wholesome, very cozy. So if you're looking for a nice cozy fantasy read, then I highly suggest picking it up. So I gave this one a 5-star, guys. Really enjoyed it. Okay guys, the next one I read was Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. But this is about a guy called Luke who is semi-famous because his parents were musicians and songwriters. His dad has had a bad rep for being addicted to drugs, so he's been in and out of rehab, and he never saw Luke grow up. He kind of like walked out on the family because he chose the rock star life over his family. Luke is semi-famous because of this, and he gets pretty much popped wherever he goes. So if he gets himself into a pickle, that gets popped and commented on. And so he's got kind of a reputation, a really bad reputation. And then we've got a guy called Oliver who doesn't do well with relationships. He's had quite a lot of partners, but none of them have ever worked out, and he can't understand why he's been for so many partners. One day, Luke goes out partying because he's depressed because his ex-boyfriend went and sold all his darkest secrets to the tabloids behind his back and betrayed him. So it made Luke not be able to trust anyone. So he went into a downward spiral and went out and got really drunk and got popped in a very bad way. Like, got popped like blind drunk in the gutter of an alley and really skimpily dressed. And that got in the papers and the press. So he works at a charity who tries to raise money to save dung beetles. I don't know why, but that's where he works. They're going to be putting on a fundraiser to help save these dung beetles and preserve them, but a lot of people start pulling out, like big investors, because of the story of Luke in the tabloids, not looking the greatest. So him and his friends come up with the idea that he should get a boyfriend, like a good clean cut boyfriend, fake relationship, so that he can look good in the tabloids, that he looks like he's changing, that he's put his life back on track. So one of his friends has another gay friend who they introduce to Luke, but they're very, very different from each other. Like, Oliver is like a vegan, he's very clean, his family's well off. Luke is basically a hurricane, he's messy, his life's in tatters, he just doesn't know what he wants to do with himself. So very, very different people. They're very different personalities. Oliver agrees to the arrangement because he also needs a date for his parents' upcoming anniversary. So he agrees to be Luke's boyfriend until the anniversary happens, and then they will go their separate ways. So he will come with Luke to this charity event and be packed with him, like going to restaurants, and Luke being clean and looking like he's turning his life around, he's got his life back on track. So they both agree to this, and they start spending time with each other to make it look believable that they're going out with each other and that Luke is getting on the right track and becoming a better person. So when the people who were going to give money to the fundraiser, those who pulled out, start to come back in again and say like, oh, okay, he's changing, so we're gonna give you money again, basically. But as all this is going on, they start to obviously actually fall for each other. But because of the situation with Luke and his ex, he finds it very, very hard to trust people, and he believes that Oliver's going to go to the press and tell all his darkest secrets, just like his ex-boyfriend did. And Oliver doesn't think he deserves a relationship. He doesn't think it's going to work out, so he gets scared. Once the anniversary is over, they end up going their separate ways. Like, Oliver sticks to the agreement and he's like, right, okay, that's it, we're done, right, bye, sort of thing. But they're both in love with each other, but he still breaks it off because he's scared. So Luke is like, bro, what the hell? So he gets his friends together and they try and convince Luke to go and fight for Oliver, and he does, and it goes well, and they get together and it's really sweet. Oliver and Luke are really cool characters. It's just they've got different personalities, so it's nice to see their different personalities and how they kind of counteract each other. They're like yin and yang, basically. They're like kind of like counteract each other. So even though one's like chaos and one's like kind of got his life on track, they kind of balance each other out, so they're actually good for each other. Really, really sweet, really cool. Really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 stars. Highly recommend. Next one I read was In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is about a woman who was in a same-sex relationship, which was very, very abusive. And it's told in memoirs about her experiences, how it all started, and the type of abuse what happened. It was a polyamorous relationship, so they dated more than one person. But like once the polyamorous relationship broke off and it was just them two together, the partner would become really abusive to Carmen. But it was really interesting to see how it all started and how it got worse over time, and how she was able to get out of it and deal with it as it was happening and dealing with it after they had broke up, and she got herself out of that toxic environment. It was quite difficult to follow in some places, but I really enjoyed it, guys. There's not much to say about it because that's basically all it is. It's basically just a collection of memoirs of this person's experience and being in an abusive relationship. But yeah, like I said, it was a really heartbreaking read, but at the same time very interesting to see how it played out and how she handled this situation and handled the abuse as it was happening. But yeah, guys, I highly recommend this book. It was a really, really interesting read, and I gave this one 4 stars. Only because it was hard to follow in some places. It would have been a 5 if it wasn't so hard to follow, but yeah, that was the 5th book I read for the month of June. Okay guys, the next book I read was Less by Andrew Sean Greer. This is about a gay man called Arthur Less. He gets invited to an ex-boyfriend's wedding and he doesn't want to attend because he doesn't want rumours to spread about what happened in the relationship, why they broke up. He doesn't want whispers and, people accusing him of things and just like whispers behind his back. He doesn't want all the awkwardness of attending this when his ex-boyfriend's getting married to someone else. Yeah, he accepts all these jobs in different parts of the world. It takes him all around the world. And he does this just to get away and avoid having to go to this wedding. He goes on all these trips, and it's basically following all of his trips to these different locations and what he gets up to, and him seeing old friends and making new friends. And then he finally ends up in India, where he starts to rewrite his book so it can get published. It was an okay book. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't that invested in it, if that makes sense. I wasn't invested in the character. I didn't click with the character. I didn't really click with the story. It wasn't my type of book. I couldn't get into it that much. I nearly put it down and didn't finish it, but I carried on. It took us quite a while to finish it because of this reason, so unfortunately I only give this one a 3-star. It is what it is. All can't be winners, right? Okay, the final book I read for the month of June was Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. Oh my god, this book. I freaking love this book. This one is probably my favourite book I've read of June. So this is about a transgender boy called Yadriel, and Yadriel is part of Latina magical family. The girls are meant to be able to heal people, so they go into the medical field, and the males of this family are able to send spirits to the afterlife. In order to become a Brujo or a Bruja, depending on your gender, you have to go through a ritual to be given your powers and to get your proteger. I don't know how to say it, but it's basically the boys get a dagger and the girls get a rosary bead where their powers are sourced from. Because Yadriel is a transgender boy, they don't believe that Lady Death will grant him with the powers that the males get in the family. So the community kind of shuns him and doesn't accept him. So in order for Yadriel to prove that Lady Death see beyond his gender in that he is meant to be a male, him and his cousin Maritza go and perform the ritual together themselves. And lo and behold, Lady Death grants him with the Brujo powers, not the Bruja powers. She grants him with the male powers, like you should have. So Lady Death sees him as a boy. But while he's performing this ritual and after it's finished, the family can sense when another part of the community dies. They all feel it. Him and Maritza get the feeling that someone is passing, and it turns out that it's his cousin Miguel who has been murdered. So the father sends the Brujo on a mission to find Miguel and try and send his spirit to the afterlife so he can come back for De los Muertos, but they're not able to find his body anywhere. It's just totally vanished out of existence. So Yadriel gets a feeling of a spirit nearby, so he goes and follows that feeling of the spirit, and he summons the spirit into the world of the living because he thinks it's going to be Miguel. But it turns out not to be Miguel. It turns out to be a boy from his school who also got murdered the same night as Miguel. And his name is Julian. And Julian is shocked to learn that he has died, but he doesn't know how it happened. He was protecting one of his friends, and the next thing you knew, he was dead. And he was in that church with Yadriel and Maritza, and he didn't know how he got there. He makes a pact with Julian to let him release Julian's spirit into the afterlife so he can prove that he is a real Brujo and that he can do it. Julian is no. At first he's no, nah, this isn't happening. I'm not ready to part ways with life yet. I want to go and check on my friends, make sure they're okay because they were with me when I died, and I want to make sure they got out there safe and alive themselves. So, and then he's once I know they're safe, then you can release me into the afterlife. Him and Maritza help Julian track down his friends and see if they're okay. He finds out that they are okay, and once he knows that they're fine, he agrees to let Yadriel release his spirit on the night of De los Muertos. So as Yadriel and Julian start spending more time together, because obviously he can't go anywhere because he's tethered to Yadriel, so he has to be around Yadriel all the time. They're hanging out all the time, and they start opening up to each other and telling each other their backstories, and Julian accepts Yadriel for who he is, and they start to get feelings for each other. And as the time grows nearer for Julian to be set into the afterlife, Yadriel doesn't want it to happen because he's starting to like him. He wants a relationship with Julian. But obviously he's a ghost, so they can't have a relationship. So as it's getting nearer and nearer, Julian starts to glitch in and out of existence, and the way he was killed kind of shows up, and he's got a stab wound on his chest, and then blood pours out of onto his clothes. But he's still a ghost, but it all starts happening as it's getting closer and closer to Delos Muertos. So Yadriel believes he's going monster-like, and he's starting to lose it. So Julian tells Yadriel to do it sooner because he doesn't want to lose his mind and lose himself. So Yadriel agrees to it, and he takes Julian to the church to do it. But when he tries to cut the tether to Julian and the object which Julian's attached to, it doesn't work. But again, Yadriel gets that feeling that there's a spirit still around, so he follows that feeling again. It leads him to Julian's body, Miguel's body, and two other people's bodies who are being used as part of a ritual to summon basically the devil sort of thing, like a jaguar devil sort of thing, who would drag all the spirits to the underworld, and they're all part of that thing. They all got killed with the daggers for that ritual, but Julian is still alive. That's why his tether won't break, because he's actually still alive. And their spirits are in this pendant that is being used for the ritual by the person who's doing it. Yadriel fights this person and stops the ritual, and he calls upon Lady Death to ask her to save all these people who have been used in the ritual, because 3 of them are dead and Julian is dying. And then he eventually does die. Yadriel calls on Lady Death to make them come alive, to be like, please don't let this be it for them, please bring them back to life. And she's like, I can't do that. It's not in my power to do that. The only way that these people can be brought back to life is if Yadriel sacrifices himself, gives his soul for these 4 souls. I won't say any more on it. I won't say if he did sacrifice himself or what happens or who was behind the ritual, but thoroughly enjoyed this one. This was my favourite from the 7 that I read for this month. Fantastic story. So well written. The plot was fantastic. The twist was unexpected. The characters were just amazing. I clicked with the characters so easily. This book made me cry. It made me cry. This book made me cry. And I don't often cry at books. I don't cry at books at all. But this one made me cry. It was just so wholesome, so just sad, and it's so good. I love this book so much. Highly recommend Cemetery Boys, guys. If you want a really wholesome, well-told read, then please do pick up Cemetery Boys. Fantastic. 5 stars. I would say 10 stars, bro. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. Favourite book of June. But anyways, guys, that was the 7 books that I read in the month of June for Pride Month. I hope you enjoyed hearing more about the books and my reviews and ratings on them. And yeah, I'm going to wrap this up, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, don't forget to smash the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel for you, so I'll catch you guys later in the video. So guys, for tonight, we're off the video.